So I'm putting together a brief video to introduce you to the idea of placing graphics inside of Adobe Illustrator. Now when you place graphics, you're importing them. It's just another way to say import. And so I have a nice picture of some pairs that I have for this layout that I downloaded from Morgfile, and I want to put it inside my layout here. So first things first, I'm in Illustrator. I want to go underneath the File menu down to Place. And what I want to do is I want to locate where the pair image is, and I've got it right here. And normally you just click Place, but I want to point a few things out to you first. That there's the ability for you to click to check to show import options. There's the ability to click Replace, meaning if you click on a box containing an image already and you re-import, that it'll replace that item. We don't want to do that necessarily. There's a template option, and the template option we'll talk about when we get to assignment 5. And then there's the ability to link a file versus embed it. In order to link a file, the box has to be checked, otherwise the behavior will be embedding. And this video is going to point the difference between those two things out to you. So I'm going to go ahead and click Place. And if I just click, I want to show you this as well. If I just click to place it, it'll place it in at its full resolution size. And for this particular document, that is gigantic. You can kind of move it around here and you can see the size of a digital file is going to far exceed really the size of the page that we have here. So instead, I'm going to do the process again, and I'm going to go down to Place. I'm going to select this item. I'm going to go ahead and click Place. And instead of just clicking, I'm going to click and drag. And what click and drag will do is it'll proportionately allow me to size how big I would like to bring the graphic in. And for this particular demo, I'm going to say about this size here, and I'll release it, and it will fit the graphic inside that size. Now that is placing the image, and the behavior is to embed it. I'd like to do another version of it. I'm going to go underneath File here to Place. And remember these checkboxes, we don't want to forget those. I'm going to select my graphic. And I'm not going to click Replace because I don't want to put it in the exact same area as this one is. I'm going to click on Link, however. And then I'm going to click on Place. And you see the cursor is loaded up here. And I'm going to click and drag. And I've imported this image twice. Now, there's something kind of interesting. You'll notice one box doesn't have an X through it, and the other one does. That's because one of these items is linked and the other is embedded. And if we call up the dialog box for link, and it's underneath Window, I can go to Link. You'll see that one of these graphics is linked and the other is embedded. Now the image for this, by the way, when something is embedded, you get this little icon that's on the right, and when something is linked, it just appears like this. So if I click on this one, I can see that this is the embedded, that's the first one, and click on this one, I'll see this is the link. So you may be asking yourself, what does embed mean? What does link mean? Why is one better than the other? Why would you want to do one versus the other? So I've got a real fast little graphic put together here that I'm going to share with you. When you embed the graphic, what it does is it incorporates it into the Illustrator file, meaning that the code for that graphic now becomes part and parcel of the Illustrator code. So the advantage to embedding a graphic, you see the little advantage symbol here, is that you only have one file. You only need to send that Illustrator file when you import it. The advantage to linking, however, is the Illustrator file size stays smaller. Now, you're going to make up for that because you have to include 2 files. So you can view that as something that is a disadvantage potentially. That if you link, it just associates. It does not incorporate. So that means that I have to send the Illustrator file if I link it, and I also have to send the file for the image along with the Illustrator file in the same folder. There are some advantages to linking though, and that the big advantage is it's a dynamic update. So a lot of times if you work for a company and let's say you have a logo and the logo is still in development, it will make sense to link it first during early design. And then when the logo is finalized, you can always embed it later. So an advantage to linking, and a big advantage, is actually the dynamic updating process. That's also the disadvantage of embedding it. So if I embed it, remember I am incorporating that file at that moment into the Illustrator file. So it's becoming one big file. So if I change the image later, I'm going to have to re-import it. If I link instead, Illustrator file and the image need to be put together in a folder, which some people may view as, again, a disadvantage, but the advantage of it is that dynamic update. The disadvantage, remember, if you do embed, is no dynamic linking. The advantage, if you link, is the dynamic linking. Those are the big advantages. All right, so let's go back to our images. We have one image here, and we have another image here. One is placed and one is embedded. And I'm going to save this document, save as, and I'll just save it in my downloads as an example. And we'll save it in there. All right, and close it real quick. And I'm going to go to Photoshop, and I've got this beautiful image of pairs that somebody did, and I'm going to go ahead and modify these pairs. And I'm just going to do a silly modification so that we can see it rather quickly. I'm going to take a paintbrush, and I'm going to load it up with some red paint. And then I'm going to make sure the paintbrush mode is set maybe to overlay. And we'll take the opacity down a little bit, and I'm going to make this brush much larger so I can, very quickly cover these pairs. And then I'm going to take the hardness off a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to paint on these pairs, and the pairs become sort of a reddish color, these two on the right. And I'll come back in here. I'm not being real sensitive about this. It's kind of a little sloppy there. All right, so I've got these pairs and they're painted. These two pairs are painted red. I have changed that image. So here's where you're going to see the difference between embed and link. I'm going to close that image. Okay. We'll go back to Illustrator. I'll open a recent file, which is our example. And you'll notice that the file that was linked automatically updated, whereas the one that was embedded did not. I'm going to have to go back and re-import it. So very quickly, to help you understand the difference between place options with your graphics, there's link and then there's embed. When each one has a distinct advantage for a different use. Link is usually when if you're working in development, if maybe the graphics aren't quite yet finalized, whereas embed, maybe if the graphics are already finalized, decisions already been made. And again, to show you that palette so you can see what they look like, the big giveaway that something has been embedded is you see the tiny sort of graphic over here that shows that this is an embedded file. And then this one doesn't have that, so we can read in the dialog box that it's linked. Now, if I needed, for whatever reason, to go and work on it, I also have the ability to relink something that's the link has been severed, or to go ahead and go to where the link is in a document, and then to go ahead and edit that original document. So I can go back and maybe change those pairs from that horrendous red to the nice, beautiful right pair look that it had. I hope this answers your questions on linking versus embedding, both ways that you can place graphics inside of Adobe Illustrator. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact me.